Just a quick heads up before we jump in today. If you're, rushing out the door and short on time, we've actually put a shorter, high-level version of this discussion right down in the show notes for you.
Yeah, it's a great little summary if you just need the quick hits.
Exactly. But if you're sticking with us for the deep dive, I have a question for you. Have you ever tried to get a group of 80 neighbors to agree on spending thousands of dollars on something that, well, only 5 of them actually use?
Oh, man. I mean, that is just a recipe for absolute neighborhood chaos, honestly.
It really is. And, as investigative tech journalists and community advocates, we've spent the whole week digging through some really fascinating recorded strategy meetings.
Right, between an EV charging advocate, a software developer, and some technical documentation for a community app called EVnSteven.
Yeah. And our mission today is to unpack this massive, incredibly common headache of getting electric vehicle charging installed in multifamily buildings. We really want to find out why it is so painful and, explore this surprising, high-trust, low-tech solution that could save condo owners literally thousands of dollars.
Which is huge. And we are looking at this whole situation through the lens of a guy named Harry.
Right.
And we are keeping his last name out of it just for his own privacy, obviously. But Harry drives a Tesla, and he lives in this 81-unit building complex in North Vancouver that was built back in 1985.
And for anyone listening outside of British Columbia, Strata is essentially what you might know as a condo board or a homeowners association.
Right, exactly. So you've got an older building, lots of units, shared infrastructure, and a volunteer board managing the budget.
It is the perfect blueprint for this exact problem. I mean, we really start at Harry's recent annual general meeting.
Oh, yeah. AGM.
Yeah. The Strata Council basically proposed a special levy to install level 2 credit card networked EV charging infrastructure for the entire building.
And the price tag was just shocking.
Unbelievable. For Harry's share alone, the proposed levy was roughly $2,400 to $2,500.
Right. And that massive price tag, it didn't even include the actual wall charger.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was simply the cost of getting the heavy gauge wires run from the main electrical room all the way to his specific parking stall. He would still have to go out and buy his own, proprietary wall connector on top of that.
Wow. And the logic behind how this Strata calculated that $2,500 figure is it's where the plan completely unraveled.
Totally. Because they based the cost on the square footage of each resident's condo unit.
Which, fundamentally ignores how electrical engineering actually works, right?
Exactly. If you are running physical wires through a concrete parking garage, the cost is dictated entirely by distance.
Yeah.
The labor and materials, it all depends on how many feet of copper, wire, and steel conduit are required to physically bridge that gap from the basement electrical room to that specific parking stall.
So a resident living in a massive penthouse on the 4th floor does not somehow require more conduit in the basement than someone in a small studio apartment.
Right. It makes zero sense from a physics standpoint.
Now, we should be really clear here that the Strata council members, they are not the villains in this story.
No, not at all.
They are volunteer neighbors, usually just doing their best while juggling day jobs, trying to interpret some incredibly complex technical information.
Yeah, and you have to think about it from their perspective. When a volunteer board searches online for, condo EV charging, the search results are completely dominated by these massive corporate vendors.
Oh, absolutely. Vendors selling highly managed network solutions.
Right. And that corporate solution feels like the safe bet to a property manager. It offers sophisticated load balancing, handles payment processing, it promises to manage all the billing automatically.
But delivering that level of service requires just an enormous amount of physical infrastructure.
It really does.
It's kind of like the Strata forcing the entire building to chip in for a massive commercial-grade espresso machine in the lobby.
Complete with the payment terminal and a barista.
Exactly, when in reality, most people just want to plug in a simple drip coffee maker in their own kitchen.
That commercial espresso machine analogy is just perfect for describing a level 2 commercial setup. Because level 2 charging operates on 220-volt power.
Which is a lot.
It's a huge amount of power. To safely distribute 220 volts to 81 parking stalls in an older building, the electrical requirements just escalate exponentially.
You'd need incredibly thick copper wire.
Yeah, thick wire to handle the current massive physical conduits snaking all along the concrete ceilings, expensive commercial subpanels, and sophisticated load balancing software to prevent the entire system from just tripping the building's main breaker.
And if enough residents actually buy electric vehicles and plug into those level 2 chargers simultaneously, the building would eventually exceed its total electrical capacity anyway.
Exactly. They would have to petition the city to pull a thicker main line from the municipal grid into the building.
Which triggers an entirely new multi-million-dollar infrastructure project.
Right. It's a nightmare. But the alternative is the drip coffee maker.
Yeah.
Level 1 charging.
Level 1.
Yeah, this is literally just a standard 110-volt wall outlet, the exact same receptacle you use to plug in a living room lamp or a vacuum cleaner.
And Harry realized his daily driving habits just did not require that industrial-grade level 2 power.
No, most people's don't.
Yep.
A basic level 1 trickle charge actually provides roughly 100 kilometers of range when a car is plugged in overnight.
Okay, but I hear the range anxiety argument constantly, right? People always ask, what happens when they need to drive 500 kilometers in a single day for a spontaneous road trip or a family emergency?
Sure.
Doesn't the infrastructure need to be built for that worst-case scenario?
Well, see, blending those two use cases is exactly what drives up these infrastructure costs so much. If you embark on a 500-kilometer road trip, you are not relying on your home charger to complete that journey anyway.
Right, you're out on the highway.
Exactly. You rely on the public charging network. I mean, BC Hydro operates a fleet of over 600 fast chargers. There are robust supercharger networks spanning major highways coast to coast now.
So home charging is primarily just designed to top up the daily commute.
Exactly. Think about it. You don't install an underground gasoline tank in your driveway for your internal combustion car.
That's a great point.
So you don't necessarily need a commercial supercharger in your home garage either.
And the technical capabilities of just a standard wall outlet are actually highlighted in this great anecdote from the sources we reviewed.
Oh, the Tofino trip.
Yes. The software developer, David, took a low-range EV on a road trip to Tofino, British Columbia. And that route is notoriously hilly, it's remote, and really tricky for older EVs.
Very tricky.
He ended up staying at this older motel called the Dolphin Inn, and he paid the owners $20 a night to just plug into a regular 120-volt outlet in the parking lot.
And the physical state of that outlet is honestly the best part of the story. The source describes it as incredibly janky.
Like barely holding together.
Yeah, it was housed inside this weathered wooden box that literally resembled a birdhouse. The aesthetic was terrifying, to the point where he actually worried the heavy charging cable would physically pull the receptacle right out of the wood.
But it worked, right?
It works flawlessly. He plugged his highly advanced electric vehicle into this dilapidated wooden box, and it delivered a slow, consistent trickle of electricity that perfectly topped up his battery every single night.
So if a janky wooden birdhouse can reliably charge an EV, a concrete wall in a parking garage can certainly handle the job.
Absolutely.
But the real question is, how do you wire a standard level 1 plug in a shared condo environment without triggering a massive Strata levy? And this brings us to the physical layout of Harry's complex and this massive advantage he discovered regarding his specific parking stall.
Yeah, Harry got incredibly lucky here. His Strata complex consists of 3 separate structures, and Harry lives in building 2.
Okay.
By sheer luck of the architectural draw, his parking stall is located in the exact same building as the main power room.
Wow.
Yeah, this is the room housing all the individual BC Hydro meters for every single unit in that building.
Which means his parking stall is physically adjacent to his own condo's power supply.
Precisely. Because the distance is so incredibly short, he can simply hire an electrician to run a conduit directly from his parking stall straight into his individual condo's BC Hydro meter.
That's amazing. And the cost?
The estimated cost for that really short run of wire is only between $600 and $800.
So he just bypasses the corporate vendors entirely.
Entirely.
The Strata Council doesn't need to install tracking hardware or monitor his usage because the electricity his car consumes just goes straight onto his personal hydro bill.
At the standard low-cost residential rate, too.
So he essentially solved his own problem. But if he has this golden ticket to bypass the building's shared infrastructure entirely, why are we even talking about him?
Because his motivation is what makes this a blueprint for other buildings. Harry doesn't actually need a community charging app.
Right, he's totally self-sufficient.
Exactly. But he is volunteering to act as the vanguard for his entire community. He intends to pay for his own wiring, mount a sign above his stall proving he pays for his own power, and then run the EVnSteven community tracking app in parallel.
Just to generate the data.
Yes.
Yeah.
He wants to generate that data to prove to the rest of the strata that a low-cost, low-voltage charging setup is genuinely viable.
It's like he found the golden ticket, a secret back door right to the power grid. But instead of just locking the door behind him, he's holding it open and drawing a map for everyone else.
That's exactly what he's doing.
But the people who actually need that map are the residents parked, say, 3 levels down on the other side of the garage.
Right, the ones who aren't in building 2.
If their stalls are hundreds of feet away from the meter room, running individual wires to their personal meters becomes physically impossible.
Or just prohibitively expensive.
So those neighbors have to tap into the building's shared house power.
And installing basic 110-volt level 1 outlets tapped directly into the shared house power panel is actually incredibly cheap from a hardware perspective.
But the friction point is the accounting, right?
Exactly. How does the Strata track who uses what so the specific EV drivers can reimburse the building without resorting to those, $3,000 commercial chargers with built-in credit card readers?
And this is where we shift away from smart hardware and look at smart software.
The EVnSteven solution. Yeah.
The app provides a software-only honor system approach to EV charging. But how does a piece of software on a phone actually measure physical electricity consumption without being hardwired into the wall outlet?
The math behind it is brilliantly simple, honestly. The app doesn't need to physically measure the electrons flowing through the wire because the parameters of a standard level 1 outlet are a known constant.
Okay, what does that mean in practical terms?
So a typical 15-amp wall plug delivers roughly 1.4 kilowatts of power per hour.
Yeah.
The app just leverages that constant. A resident pulls into their stall, plugs their car into the basic outlet, and opens the app to check in. When they unplug in the morning, they tap to check out.
Oh, I see. So the software takes the total time they were checked in, multiplies it by that 1.4 kilowatt constant, and then multiplies that figure by the local utility rate.
Exactly. It generates a highly accurate financial estimate of the electricity consumed during that specific session.
That's incredibly smart.
And the platform charges 0 payment processing fees to the property owners. It just logs the session so the resident can periodically reimburse the Strata for their usage.
But we have to address the obvious flaw in this setup.
The honor system.
Yeah. If the hardware is just a standard wall outlet, there is no physical lock preventing someone from taking the electricity. I mean, people routinely steal Amazon packages from secured lobbies.
Sadly true.
If a condo board relies entirely on an honor system, aren't rogue neighbors just going to siphon off the shared house power without checking into the app?
Power theft is the primary concern every property manager brings up immediately. But breaking down the actual math of electricity costs completely alters the risk profile here.
How so?
Imagine a worst-case scenario. A resident decides to aggressively steal power. They plug their vehicle into a 20-amp level 1 outlet and draw maximum power for 24 hours a day for 30 days straight without ever unplugging.
Which requires the car to remain parked and constantly drawing a load for an entire month?
Right. Even under those extreme, virtually impossible conditions, the absolute maximum value of the electricity they could steal maxes out around $155 for the month.
Wait, that's the absolute maximum?
Yes. So realistically, a resident sneaking a 12-hour charge overnight is stealing about $2.50 worth of electricity.
$2.50 for an entire night of fuel.
The baseline cost of residential electricity is just so low that the financial incentive for elaborate theft simply does not exist. A resident would be risking massive social friction with their neighbors and the wrath of the Strata Council for the monetary equivalent of a cheap cup of coffee.
I mean, that makes sense. But if the financial risk is largely mitigated by the low cost of the product, there still needs to be a mechanism to enforce the honor system, right? What is the low-tech deterrent keeping people honest?
Community visibility replaces the physical locks. Think back to Harry's stall. The parking spaces wired directly to personal meters receive a green dot or a clear sign stating private outlet metered to unit X.
Okay, so they are clearly marked.
Exactly. While the stalls tapping into shared house power are unmarked.
So if a neighbor walks through the garage and sees a car plugged into an unmarked house power stall, but the Strata's dashboard shows no active users checked into the EVnSteven app, the theft is immediately obvious.
Right, the community essentially polices itself. And if someone is caught circumventing the system, the escalation path is very straightforward.
What happens?
The board issues a warning. If the behavior continues, a Strata Council member simply walks into the electrical room, locates the breaker for that specific outlet, and flicks it off.
Boom.
Exactly. The physical outlet is de-energized. The privilege is revoked without needing any complex software kill switches.
Okay, so trusting your neighbors to act like adults solves the behavioral side of the equation, but what about the physical infrastructure?
The older wiring?
Yeah, older buildings have 1985 wiring. Is it actually safe to plug a modern vehicle into a basic wall outlet and pull continuous power for 12 hours straight?
Electrical safety is paramount here, absolutely. And it all comes down to understanding the electrical code regarding continuous loads.
Okay, break that down for me.
The code dictates that any device drawing power for more than 3 hours continuously cannot pull more than 80% of the circuit's rated maximum capacity.
So for a standard 20-amp breaker, 80% means the vehicle cannot pull more than 16 amps of power.
Correct. And modern EV charging cables are designed around this exact limitation. The mobile connectors provided by manufacturers like Tesla or Kia are UL-approved devices engineered with built-in safety margins.
Oh, that's good to know.
Yeah, they actively negotiate the power draw with the vehicle. Drivers can even manually throttle the power limit downward on their dashboard, setting it to 12, 10, or even 8 amps to ensure they never risk overheating an older circuit.
So the crucial requirement for the Strata is ensuring that when the electrician installs these level 1 outlets, every single EV stall receives its own dedicated breaker on the panel.
Absolutely essential. You cannot daisy chain 3 parking stalls onto a single shared circuit, or the combined draw will instantly trip the breaker.
Which leads to the final technical hurdle. An 81-unit building only has a finite amount of total electrical capacity flowing into its main breaker panel.
Right.
Finding the necessary headroom to add dozens of dedicated 15 or 20 amp circuits seems like it would require a massive infrastructure upgrade anyway.
You'd think so. But this is where Harry stumbled onto a massive revelation while he was simply shopping for home appliances.
Appliances?
Yeah, he was looking to replace his washer and dryer and discovered a major shift in how modern appliances are manufactured today.
Oh, right. The industry has moved toward heat pump technology.
Exactly. Modern heat pump dryers are entirely ventless. They use condensed water systems, filtering the moisture directly down the same drain pipe used by the washing machine.
That's incredible.
The technology is so effective that building cones in places like British Columbia no longer mandate external dryer vents in new condo construction.
Wait, so if these new heat pump dryers are ventless and use an econo mode to run more efficiently, they don't require the massive 220-volt power supply that legacy dryers used, right?
Right. They plug into standard 110-volt outlets.
Oh, wow. I see the connection now.
Yeah.
Every time a resident in an older building remodels their laundry room and replaces an old 220-volt behemoth with a modern heat pump dryer, they're essentially handing a massive chunk of electrical capacity back to the building's main panel.
Exactly. The electrical headroom of the entire building is naturally expanding through normal appliance attrition.
That is fascinating.
As ovens, dryers, and water heaters become vastly more efficient, the total load on the building drops. That newly freed up 220-volt capacity on the main panel is absolutely perfect for being split into multiple dedicated level 1 charging circuits down in the parking garage.
So the entire narrative shifts. What started as an 81-unit building facing a multi-million-dollar infrastructure war over network chargers suddenly looks like a highly solvable problem.
Very solvable. If Strata councils can accept the realities of level 1 daily commuting, that 100 kilometers of range overnight is genuinely sufficient for the vast majority of drivers, they can approach this transition organically.
Yeah, they can deploy infrastructure one single parking stall at a time using the naturally expanding capacity of their existing panels.
Exactly. By combining hidden electrical capacity with high-trust, low-tech software like EVnSteven, communities can handle the accounting and the infrastructure without paying massive premiums to corporate middlemen.
It really forces us to reevaluate our default approach to modernizing infrastructure, doesn't it? We have spent the last decade assuming the only way to solve community problems is by bolting expensive, proprietary smart hardware to every wall we can find.
Right. But what if the future of smart cities actually relies heavily on dumb hardware?
I love that idea. Standard wall outlets, basic plumbing, simple physical infrastructure, paired with incredibly smart, transparent community software.
It's a game changer. If a high-trust app can manage the electrical grid of a parking garage, imagine how a similar philosophy could revolutionize how a neighborhood shares a localized rooftop solar array.
Or manages community water usage during a drought.
Exactly. We might be over-engineering our daily lives when simple transparency and good neighbors are actually enough.
What a fantastic concept to end on. We welcome all comments, feedback, and corrections in the comments section. Listeners should visit the EVnSteven website, linked in the show notes, to learn how to simplify their own building's charging setup. Take a look at your own parking garage and ask yourself, do you really need the commercial espresso machine, or is it time to just plug in the drip coffee maker?